We are, gentlemen, our microphone is on, so just letting you know. Just heads up.
Welcome to the Public Safety Committee meeting of Monday, October 16th, 2023 at 5:30 PM. Call to order, and with that, do I have an approval of the minutes from our prior meeting?
Yeah, motion to approve the minutes from the prior meeting?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No discussion, I assume. That was the meeting of September 18th, 2023. We are now open to the public for public comment. Would anybody like to approach the podium? Please do. And your name and address.
Yes, I don't do this very often, so bear with me. Well, my name is Deborah Graham, and I reside at 202 Cedar Hollow in Rocky Hill. On Thursday, October 5th, I was involved in a multi-vehicle crash. My purpose for me being here is not to tell you about the crash. And I'm sorry, I get a little bit emotional, but I apologize. It's to focus on the responders. The police officers that responded, the firemen, and the EMTs. They responded quickly, they assessed the situation, saw to it that whoever needed it got medical attention quickly, treated at the time that we needed the medical attention. I remember getting onto the stretcher and seeing on my right-hand side and watching all the glass and all the debris being swept up quickly so traffic could be resumed, because it was about 4:30 or 4:20 when this accident happened. They did what they were trained to do. There was no argument. There was no, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. They were trained to do something. They took their cue and they did it perfectly. So I want to give a special thanks to the officers that were there and responded, to the EMTs, and to the firemen. So Sergeant Carter was very kind to us. The officers that responded that I saw was Officer Jonathan Garcia and Officer Jenny Garcia. The fireman who assisted me was Anthony Spadabanis. He's a new fireman, and I know him well. So I just want, he was very, very kind when he helped me onto the stretcher and even picked me up from the hospital. So I wanted to make that known. I am very proud of the Rocky Hill Police and the fire department, and also the people that were tending on the ambulance. So thank you very much for letting me speak positively, and have a good evening, all of you.
Thank you very much.
You made our day.
Do we know, was it Rocky Hill Volunteer Fire?
When was the call?
It was October 5th on Thursday, about 4:20.
That would be during Aetna's coverage times.
Aetna's coverage?
It was a 5-car crash.
Weston Cromwell.
It was on Route 3, right in front of Golden Opportunities. I don't know why there's so many accidents that are there, but I just wanted to speak positively on the departments.
Thank you.
Thank you again. We appreciate it. Any other comments from the public? Any other comments from the public? We don't see any. We don't have any in queue online that I'm aware of. All right, we'll move on to departmental updates, and we'll start right out with fire. Chief Garahy.
Okay, thank you. And I thank the lady from Cedar Hollow for those positive words, and I will definitely pass them on. Anthony's one of our newer members, been with us about 3 months, and he is setting the pace for a lot of people. The department's detailed report is part of the public safety packet, so I've got a couple other things to go over, so I won't be reviewing that tonight. But, well, I'd like to start off by thanking Ed Sharmant and the entire committee. This is probably the last night for this committee, and Ed, for the past 6 years, you've been on the Public Safety Committee with 4 years as chair, and we just appreciate all the efforts and all the directions, so thank you. Bill, Pankaj, thank you. Moving on, as the town manager recently stated in his report, Assistant Chief Cromus submitted his retirement letter, which will be effective 1/1/24. Dave spent 38 years with the department, and for the last 15 has been an integral part of the senior management. He's leaving some big shoes to fill. It's going to be difficult, but that allows me to segue into my next topic. We have contracted with a Connecticut Fire Service testing firm for officer testing. Mission CIT is administering a line officer test, actually tonight, beginning in about 25 minutes, with an electronic 100-question test, and candidates who successfully pass this test will move to the oral board, and from there, if successful, on to staff interviews. We expect appointments to start December 1st, 2023. And Mission CIT is also preparing an assistant chief's test, followed by a deputy chief's test. So we wanted to bring that to your attention, that all testing is now done by outside agencies, and they produce a list once they're completed with the testing for us to work off of. The LAH program, Limited Access Highway, is going well, with a total as of today of, actually, this is wrong because we had a call on our way here tonight on the highway, so a total of $45,000 billed this fiscal year. I believe the town is owed about $32,000 at this point, but we received $4,500 earlier today, and we expect to receive the same amount tomorrow. And since January 1st, we've had about 584 calls for service, which is about 15% greater than this time last year. I ran the numbers earlier today, but we're seeing a spike within a percentage point or two in all areas. And we are still averaging about 15 firefighters per call, and the membership this year has responded, has made about 9,300 individual responses. Just to touch on our recruitment efforts, we continue to see the fruits of our labor in regards to recruitment. We've completed the onboarding process for 10 new members and 2 cadet members. And we held, and last public safety meeting we mentioned we were going to hold it, but we've held a new member educational program to outline the expectations and to provide the new and prospective members details about the commitment. After this, we had 2 prospective members put their onboarding on hold because the time commitment is greater than anticipated. And, you know, we're grateful for their interest and that the program worked. They were able to see the time commitment, and they're not able to make it. So also, as of last week, we had 2 of our newer members resign. Both were offered positions in their respective fields in different states. To offset that, though, we have 2 members in the pipeline. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Counselor O'Sullivan.
No questions. Thank you for that report,
Thank you,
Chief.
Bill.
Counselor Prakash.
Yeah, Chief. So, any concerns on like any turnover issues like you mentioned? The pipeline is good.
The
and-
pipeline's good. We have 2 more in the pipeline. We just actually put one on before that who came fully trained. Berlin Fire Department did the honor of training him for us, and then he moved to Rocky Hill, so we scooped him up. We're at about 68 members, and we're handling the calls very well.
No, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, no questions, but I want to second the comments from the public tonight coming from the Cedar Hollow address. You know, you attend these meetings at Fall Fest or National Night Out or other events that you host, whether it's handing out COVID tests in sub-zero weather in Elm Ridge Park or what have you. And, you know, people are constantly saying to the town council, myself, I'm sure that Bill and Punkage can attest to this, that we're appreciative of the great service that we do get from our safety departments over the years, and it's pretty darn steady. It's pretty, you know, we can count on it.
Thank you.
You know, and that's what's great. So, thank you for your report. We will look to. Do you want to comment to any degree on emergency management at this moment?
I do, and I will. And for emergency management, we continue to meet with the PD in regards to their CALIA program and required tabletop. We have the topic, which is going to be a closely guarded secret for a while. And we expect to hold the drill in January of 2024. I also have an update to the hazard mitigation plan. I've attended several educational sessions put on by the Connecticut Institute for Resilience and Climate Adaptation, and that's through UConn. And the mission of the Institute is to increase the resilience and sustainability of communities vulnerable to the impacts of climate change on the natural, the built, and the human environments. We have met with the town, or they have met with the town, and we've set some priorities, and I can review those in a second. They are currently updating their annexes, and they'll forward a draft during December to us. Then they will send the Rocky Hill specific part of the document to us for review and any updates, population sizes, whatever it might be. In February of next year, they're going to send the draft plan for review to FEMA. And then next summer, they'll send the final plan after FEMA reviews it to the council for review and possible adaptation, or adoption, I'm sorry. And our priorities that we set in a meeting that was June 30th, and attending the meeting was myself, members from the committee, Kim Ritchie was there, Mike Violet, the town manager, the police chief, Steve Sopolak, the fire marshal, and Joe Lentini. And our identified areas of concern were Gulf Brook in the area of the MDC treatment plant, flooding along Waters Chase Drive, flooding along the Silas Dean, the pump station on Main and Brook, and the pump station at Pratt Street. So those are what we identified to the state for areas of concern for the Institute to weigh. Okay, and any questions on that before I go to the next subject?
And now this is the CALIA?
No, this, I moved on from CALIA to, this is a CROG-based program
CROG-based.
where you look at potential environmental hazards or potential hazards within the town that are affected by global warming and atmospheric conditions.
Yeah, let me jump in. This is the Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. It's updated every 4 years. This is the third one I've been involved in, coordinated since I've been here. CROG has subbed the project out to the entity Mike has just explained. It's a regional hazard mitigation plan. You guys, I think this council actually approved the last one about 4 years ago, if I'm not correct. It's probably a 1.5-year process. And we identify a number of different priorities or hazard areas, including flooding, also including a need for shelters, a need for emergency setup areas, drainage problems on streets and in Brooks. I know we had identified in the past a few other areas in town, and we have to identify all of our critical infrastructure in town. We have quite a few. We have
So,
the jet fuel line and the natural gas location, and then the Vexation Hill. Yeah, and many of those that we have identified.
yeah, so my question is like, once you identify them, chief and whoever want to chime in, what is the action item there? Like, what is the next step? Like, once you identify them, do you go and like inform the people who are living in those areas, or is it a state agency which comes in? What does the mitigation plan look like once you identify?
That's what we meet to discuss is, okay, do we need to do anything with these facilities that we're not doing? And if we do, then we incorporate them into a plan. Once they're in this plan, we are able to access funding,
Access funding from where?
federal, state agencies,
Okay,
to implement whatever recommendation we come up with within the plan. And not every, we have to identify critical facilities, but they're not all, they don't all require action or plans to protect or to mitigate.
yeah, because it sounds like something which is great to do, obviously, like, I mean, just the assessment and identification, right? But then I'm thinking like, how does it actually play out from a practical standpoint, right? And is there like any example of like what was done, like, let's say 4 years ago when you identified something like this, like, or 2 years, whatever, like, right? Doesn't matter what time period it is. Is there like a playbook to this, like you can talk through, or like, I don't know, like,
Yeah,
I'm just curious at this point.
there's our current hazard mitigation plan that we have.
Okay, that's the playbook. So
Yes.
if there was an incident, you go to that book, that's your guiding principle, or contains all the guiding
No, I
principles.
think you're confusing the emergency operations for the EMD with a hazard mitigation plan.
Yeah, I'm looking at the hazard mitigation plan. That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Right. So,
This is more prevention than an actual operations plan.
okay,
We're looking to identify them with the state, who will review with FEMA, so we can hopefully get funds in the future to mitigate
Prevent.
these hazards and prevent any disasters.
so prevention is the big action in the mitigation. It's not really operational in the sense that,
That's correct.
yeah, it's not after action of an event, it's pre.
So I
Which is great.
apologize
Yeah.
if I added confusion. The town manager's been through this 3 times. This is my first, so
No, that's
Right.
totally fine.
Yeah,
I got it now. It's a
You were
prevention.
involved in the last two.
I might have been the last one to understand it, but that's okay. Yeah.
Can I just follow up some questions? So would it be fair to say that a major focus of this is stormwater management and the infrastructure for dealing with that?
That would be a major component, yes.
So I assume a lot of this then is a study of what the capacity is and the recent trend lines and where we're going to need to, a major investment, I guess, of additional infrastructure.
Correct, absolutely. By us updating every 4 years allows us to access whatever money we need to access, hopefully, and get a grant. Because that's what they ask, most of these applications we go for, but especially FEMA, they will ask for the updated hazard mitigation plan. So
I
this
got
is on all 50-some-odd regional CROG towns participate.
So is this federal money flowing down to the state, flowing, so to speak? You did mention FEMA there, but you talked about state money. So is this ultimately going to be federal money? I mean, it's a national issue. I would think that there should be federal dollars involved here.
Yeah, it's federal money, it's state money, it's federal and state, well, basically federal and state money. And they look for, again, do you have an updated hazard mitigation plan? And we do, and so, we get an extra few points for doing that. In the meantime, though, the plan could be utilized, as was mentioned. Okay, we have a flooding issue on France Street. It's identified in our plan. Maybe we can get funding for it, and then we can identify it in our plan. These are the recommendations. These are the steps that we want to take. It goes all the way down to plowing you know, the cooperation between the DOT and the town with plowing streets, Silas Dean Highway, the intersections, communicating and cooperating with Eversource, you know, we have recommendations for that also.
And Ray, with stormwater management as distinct from sewage infrastructure, this would not have involve MDC then, would it?
It would not involve MDC, except for potential flooding of the pump stations, perhaps.
Right, where you could have some mingling or
Yeah.
overwhelming those systems where they sometimes come together.
No, that would be the stormwater separation that MDC,
That's like in Hartford, I'm saying, though, yeah, where the stormwater can have a bearing on the sewage system, as I understand. But that's not an issue in Rocky Hill, I take it.
not that we know of at this point.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Further questions?
No, I think.
Okay, Chief.
Just a couple more things, I promise. Switching gears totally here. Saturday, the town experienced a water main break about 2:30 in the afternoon. The break was located on the Silas Dean Highway in Weathersfield, about 400 or 500 feet just north of the town line. And it affected about 80% of the town. This included both domestic and fire protection water, hydrants, sprinkler systems, etc. The after action has not been completed yet at all, but I do just have a couple chronologicals of the event. Came in at 1:22, was verified at 1:25. Talked to the fire marshal and the town manager shortly thereafter. And when we found out the extent of the break and the Silas Dean Highway in Weathersfield by the Hartford Healthcare Building and the old Denny's, it looked like a river. It was lifting up the road. The road was compromised. It was just a mess there. When we found out the extent of the break or of the outage, we got human services involved. We had people checking on medical facilities. We advised the housing authority. And then we got the Hartford County Fire Emergency Plan involved. And we put four fire tankers on standby in case something happened in the town. At least we can have about 12,000 gallons of water coming in. We received a lot of calls for assistance. In about an hour and 20 minutes, they were able to isolate the break, and the water pressure started to come back up. With the repairs expected in 6 to 7 hours after that. We did find out some homes in the West End, which is the furthest part away from the break, weren't affected. And we just held everybody in place with the advisory, the tankers, and again, talking to the Housing Authority and Human Services. We just held all in place until about 9:30 at night. I drove by there shortly after that, and they were all gone. So it was a good assumption it was repaired by then. We actually do have another one right now, and I don't have the details on it yet, but it's on Elm Street between Ashwell and Grimes. So the road is closed down while MDC's up there. Just a couple other quick things. We produced an incident action plan for the Fall Fest, very similar to the years in the past. However, we made this incident action plan to be adaptable to any amphitheater event. It will be used as a template in the future. And lastly, on Wednesday morning, there's a statewide disaster drill tabletop, and we are scheduled to participate in it, and more details to follow on that once we get through, and we have a report on that. And that's what I have for emergency management.
Great. Councilor O'Sullivan?
No questions, thank you, Chief.
Councilor Prakash?
No questions, thank you.
The only questions I have remaining is just, do you respond, have you been involved in responding, like, from notices of terrorism, call-ins, that type of thing? Have you been Have you been put on notice? Have you?
Yes. Yes, we have, and we've had discussions, I
This
want to
month?
say last Thursday and Friday with the police department on that, and there were no specific or credible threats to our area, so we didn't put on an advisory based on those discussions.
And the call came, or the alert came to you from the state, or this was a call that was generic?
We didn't
Rocky
receive
Hill?
anything from the state. We had the discussions with the police department based on the amount of media going on with it.
Gotcha.
And once we saw all the reports, I had the discussion with Sergeant Morgan, and none of them were credible, and that's why we left it the way it was.
Thank you. Okay,
Okay.
appreciate that. All right. We're on to ambulance.
Thank you. We had a total of 412 calls for the month of September, which brings the total up to 3,477 calls. We had a total of 16 canceled calls, one no patient contact. There were 2 that were canceled prior to arrival. We had 9 lift assists for the month. We had 11 refusals of transport. There's been 4 related opioid transports within 9 cardiac arrests for the year. In just September alone, we had 3 cardiac arrests and no opioid calls at all. Rocky Hill, we had 93 hours of training for the month. We had 2 meetings, both mandatory meetings for bloodborne pathogens, which is required on a yearly basis. Also, we did our health services standby at the Veterans Home for the standby on 9/22. The community center, we did our monthly checking vital signs and answer medical questions. The RHVA had coverage for the high school band show and 4 high school football games for the month. We have 2 new members. We had 4 members move up from the probationary status to the active riding members starting the 1st of this month. And we're sitting at a total of 63 at this point for our calls for members.
Thank you for the report. Counselor O'Sullivan.
No questions. Thank you, Ryan.
Counselor Prakash.
Brian, like, what is the active number of the members?
The active riding members are 44.
44, okay. Yeah. And anything worthwhile in terms of opioid stuff? Any spikes, anything? I haven't looked at the charts today, so I
The opioids have not changed since the last 2 reports. We've had 4 for the year, but I know that we just did a call on Saturday night, which will come in the next report for next month, which will bring up 5 for an opioid call that we did.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, for the record, I just wanted to let the committee know that we have been working with VA and Aetna to streamline some of the charts and things like that. We had a working session, really good working session with the group, so we are making a lot of progress. Just wanted to thank everyone for their effort here.
Are these the consolidated reports that were just handed out prior to, just as we had the
No,
meeting?
those are our,
These are
right now, you still have
still
2
on the-
separate.
yep.
Yeah, right now we are still, Mr. Chairman, on separate reports, but we are trying to consolidate some of the stuff and trying to make sure we identify clearly, like, what are the metrics we want to see going forward, and then go and make an effort to consolidate some of that into a visual, and that's what we are working on. So identification and then some execution, which requires some collaboration between the 2 services, right, Aetna and VA. And so that's what we were working on. It was a very productive working session, so just wanted to let you guys know.
No, thank you. Do we want to question, or do we want to have Aetna's presentation? Let's go with Aetna's presentation, and then we'll have final questions and move on. It's moving along.
Yeah.
We're not done yet.
Chief Klett is there.
All right, thank you. Dave Kemp, Clinical Operations Manager for Aetna Ambulance, just for the record. So just going, thank you again for having that session with us earlier today. I think that'll be productive to kind of look at, what are the metrics that are going to really matter for the public. Because I have lots of data, and I'm happy to share whatever we, would like to see. But I think, consolidating that is a great, foot forward. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to do that. I'd be remiss to say that was awesome to have the public come in and say thank you. I'd never have actually been part of any public process to hear that, so that was cool. So I'll make sure to pass that along to our guys, and it's certainly Chief Goodrich and I would say, if there's anybody listening out there that'd like to give us the attaboys, we like that stuff. So that was a great way to start the day. Cardiac arrest in the town, pretty much we've just been kind of maintaining that. There hasn't been any real spikes in that or the opiates, knock on wood, for a little while now. I did see one case. It sounds like there might have been a second case a little while ago. We'll kind of keep tabs on that as we go. Weekly, or if I see any real spike, we'll certainly let that go out to the town manager and let you guys know. But again, knock on wood, we have not seen that as the case here in Rocky Hill. Let's see. I did consolidate just for you guys, just so that I think it was something that you had asked from the last time. I went ahead and I said, okay, well, let's get our top 5 natures out there to see what we're responding to. And one of the things I think we're going to focus on, and we came in agreement to, is the falls. So we have the sick person, which is on page 9 of the report that's sent out. A sick person is the top. That's kind of a generic catch-all. That's when the dispatcher kind of is like, I'm, hemming and hawing maybe about a couple different things, and they pick sick person because it just kind of is a blanket that fits that. Falls, Rocky Hill, just being having the older population, I think we see a kind of a higher rate of falls in the town. So I think there's going to be some ways that we can splice that data up to see if there's some education that we can get out there to get some prevention going, if that is indeed possible. And then MVAs being the other one. I think there's some data that certainly we can look at, and we can certainly talk offline on how we want to split that data up. Aside from that, the CPR rates still maintain very, as far as bystander CPR, are still maintaining very well here. We're around 35% in the town overall, and about 50% when it's somebody who's actually in active cardiac arrest. The difference there is that the 35% is for everybody, and then the 50% is for, okay, these were definitely cardiac arrest of nature type calls. So that's why there's a slight difference in those two metrics. So with that, I stand ready for any questions that you might have.
Councilor O'Sullivan,
No question. Thank you.
for either department? Councilor Prakash?
Yeah, no, so for the nothing, I think I will say the same thing. I think we are making a lot of good news here, a lot of good news stories, actually. And I think we are making a lot of progress on the data side, which, again, like we are solving in those working sessions, which is great. And I think you are working very well with the VA, so that's excellent. And I just want to make sure, like, on those double clicks, I think that'll be very interesting data from a action perspective, right? Like, I think from awareness and action perspective, what can we do? Some of this is like, kind of backward-looking data we look at, right? But then there are elements of this backward-looking data which we can use to inform the public and have some education out there. So I think those are the elements which we want to focus more on as we move forward with this. And I think just keeping that in front of us, I think that'll be very helpful. So thank you for everything. And again, I just want to thank both services here for their effort here. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
All right, before we have, I think police is on, Chief Collette will be on the media. Before he starts his presentation, though, Chief Collette, I'm just going to ask the question generally. Maybe town manager will respond, but it dawned on me as Fire Chief Gary was talking that constantly aware of the capacity, his capacity to serve the existing population, whether he's cut off from water or what have you. And I was just thinking that we have lots of events. I mean, we're a very active town, and I was wondering we had an Italian festival and a band show. I think the band show generally brings in maybe 3,500 to 5,000 folks into a concentrated area, and then we have the sports teams that are playing. I believe we have a soccer tournament that runs in the fall. Do we know what our highest population count day is of the year or of the day or night? I mean, do we? And I know we spike up during the day with people coming to work on a regular day basis, but we have some pretty substantial fall activities that maybe on any given weekend could have us up 10,000 maybe?
That's a great question, Ed. I'm not sure our day spike is as big as we think it is. As we have people coming in, we do have people leaving the town. We are somewhat a bedroom community. However, I wouldn't, boy, we'd have to look at that, and we'd have to take some time just to look at that and anticipated attendances, whether it is the Fall Fest or whatever.
Yeah,
It'd be tough.
I can get you some numbers, from economic development stats. We have, daytime population versus non-daytime because of the number of commuters that come into work. And also, I would bet that our Parks and Rec, they have numbers of how many people attend. So let me see if we can cobble some of that information together.
The soccer tournament itself
Yeah.
the soccer tournament itself was 7 different fields throughout the whole town, and it was like 41 different towns that were sending. I mean, it's the largest soccer tournament in New England, and they were starting at 7 o'clock in the morning and going until 8 o'clock at night. So it was for us to cover all the areas during the day, plus still cover the town. Plus the police were there, the fire, they had all their stuff, but all these parks were all filled with people, coming and going all day long.
Sure. Yep. No, it just draws to my mind the incident that occurred, I think it was at the band show, right? We had, when you pack 5,000 people into the high school, there's no fast way to get in and get somebody or fast way to get out with all the cars parked and everything else. And if there's another event on top of it, anyway, it would be good to know, I think.
Okay.
All right, great. Police report.
Good evening. Hope you can hear me. It's a little bit of echo in the background for me, so if I skip my words, I apologize. But I'm coming to you from the West Coast and some training this week. For the month, we have 3,003 calls for service, 28 arrests, 28 motor vehicle accidents, 3 DUI arrests, 38 infractions, 136 warnings, 3 town ordinance tickets issued, 24 animal control officer events, 3 community policing events, 6 car seat installations, and 168.5 hours of training. Our community service events included serving lunch to the seniors, a pancake breakfast at Elizabeth Court, school visit, and also the Rush Rabandon Tide Talesman event. And currently we are active in our dispatch in our patrol hiring process. We are finalizing our candidate pool for the patrol positions, and our dispatch posting closes in another week or 10 days, and we'll be moving on to that. We currently have 1 officer still out on a workers' comp injury and 2 dispatchers out on FMLA leave for medical reasons. And most recently, we were able to solidify and select the officer for the position of school resource officer, and he has begun his training with both SROs last week. And also, and I'm kind of happy to announce we've added 2 part-time members. It's a day-a-week assignment. 2 of our officers are now part of the Regional Computer Digital Investigations team, which it's based out of Manchester, and those officers will be assigned to digital investigations, cell phone downloads, and other types of computer crimes, and be an asset to our agency for our own investigative purposes as well. I was asked to mention our suicide prevention actually is well timed because we just sent, I believe, 4 of our officers to a wellness seminar last week, which was hosted, or one of the keynote speakers was Chief Brian Gould from Bristol, talking about the fallout and the recovery from their tragedy. And as well as we also have 4 members who are currently peer certified to provide peer support for officers if we see anything that we're concerned about. Along with our EAP and our collaboration with the Human Resource Department with Dana, it's been pretty effective for us and something we continue to add people to as we can. And that's what I have for updates as of today. The only public announcement would be is we have a public drug take-back program on Saturday the 28th from 10 to 2 right in front of the police department, where you can bring your drugs and drop anything off, no questions asked. We'll take it and have it destroyed safely and get it off the street for you.
Great, great, great. Any questions, Councilor O'Sullivan?
Just an observation, Chief, very gratifying to see the data point for motor vehicle theft last month, which was 0. That's a great number. Hopefully, it'll be hard to sustain that every month, but hopefully it signifies a favorable trend going forward. Thanks.
Thank you.
Counselor Prakash?
Chief, I noticed there were no charts, this report. What happened there? I don't see them.
Oh, they should.
There
They were
was,
mailed in, I believe.
there was a Monday report issued by Dan that included the update charts.
I missed that. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
It was updated today, I guess. Thank you. Yeah, my bad. I didn't see the updated one. But anyway, thanks for sending them out. The question I had was about the SRO in the school. So we have certified. So was it an internal hire, the certificate? Can you talk a little bit about that, the SRO
Sure.
position?
So we collaborate with the Board of Ed, and we take internal applications for our folks who based on qualifications. So we look for folks who've been an officer for more than 2 years, and anybody with a good resume can apply. And from that, the Board of Ed kind of takes the lead on an interview process, and that was consisting of, I believe, 4 other staff members, including Dr. Zito. And of that, the officer who was selected actually had previous SRO experience from the town of Newington when he served 4 to 5 years at the high school there. So he came, they highly recommended him, and he came out number 1 on their oral exam. And we together, agree that if that's who they wanted and that's who came out number 1 on their exam, that we were happy to send that officer over there. So he's currently training with Sarah and Keith in both schools, getting the layout, and then we'll be developing the plan with Dr. Zito about deployment, where he'll be, in which schools, and how much time at each place during his day.
Excellent. So I think that's really good news. And he's going to be online. How soon, if I miss that, probably?
He's active now, but we're just keeping him kind of in a shadow now, meaning that he is a certified SRO already. He's already been through that training, but we will send him to a more current one. And but he's in the schools now. He's just basically paired up, kind of in a buddy system with another SRO until he kind of gets his bearings. And it won't take very long, but he's there Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, making his rounds at the schools. And I imagine by a week or 2 should be completely autonomous and on his own.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Chief. I won't keep you for too long because I know you're on the West Coast and probably in a training or something. So thank you for that report.
Thank you.
Chief Mike, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, because, Mr. Chairman, this is, I think, I will take this opportunity during the Q&A, because I don't think we have this on agenda, but I want to thank you because I think Charlie's not doing a report after this. So let me take this opportunity and say thank you for your leadership on this committee. You have been an excellent leader for me, and personally speaking, a big mentor. Just learning in your leadership, under your leadership, has been tremendous. And thanks for doing that, that hard work of mentoring me, because really, I joined this committee, it was, I didn't know much about how the committee functions and what are we supposed to look at and things like that. It's a learning curve. It's a pretty decent learning curve, and I just want to thank you for being there and supporting me. And I speak for everyone, I think, in general, when I say you have been a tremendous steward for our public safety agencies around town, all of them, everyone who speaks here, I think, on this committee, presents a report. I think I'm speaking for all of them. So thank you. Really appreciate you being here, being a leader of this committee, and we'll miss you here.
Well, thank you. Jumping back to Chief, thank you, Pankaj, I appreciate that. Jumping back to Chief Collette on the terrorism question that I asked of the fire chief. So I understand that he was made aware of an incident or two, and it was studied, and I'm sure that you have some comments regarding that.
Sure, we've been monitoring. So what you don't get or don't see is we receive informational messages from, it's called CTEC. Essentially, it's the State of Connecticut's intelligence group that sends in information about regional, national, and local threats. In my absence, Sergeant Acting Lieutenant Morgan and the fire chief collaborated on a couple events, but it didn't raise to a level for which we felt that putting anything out publicly or making any sort of announcements were necessary. I can assure you that some of our discussions, behind the scenes were to ensure that we had a higher visibility around our schools and some public areas. But we didn't have anything credible to feel like we had to put any public messaging out other than continuing our being vigilant in our active patrols.
Great. Any questions of that, councilors? Okay, yeah, no, it's good to know that, obviously you can't speak to a lot of the specifics, but we want to know that you're connecting the dots, or you're trying to connect dots, so especially around this heightened time. So thank you for that. Appreciate the report. And we do not have a health district report tonight. We do have a report, an epidemiological report from the Central Connecticut Health District in our packets, but there'll be no presentation. Is that right, Ray?
Correct.
Okay. All right. No old business, new business, department discussions on suicide prevention. So I had asked Ray to, and I'll let you go, but I attended the forum that, so the Elks Club in town sponsored a suicide prevention forum. And they had professionals here in the council chambers one night, a couple weeks ago, and they included law enforcement and military service and the Institute up in Hartford, and some real life stories on the panel. And it was extremely informative. I asked Ray to share that information with the departments and to have the departments speak to us as to how they're looking at their staff to identify and get because we're always the last to know when somebody, it feels that way anyway sometimes. You're the last to know when somebody makes that awful decision to try to take their life or to take it. And we're hoping that our departments are sensitive to the stresses on their first responders. With that, I'll turn it to Ray.
I had asked the first responders to discuss, and I know Chief Garrahy touched upon that, as did Officer Klett. Maybe the ambulance can fill us in also.
From the ambulance standpoint, for our certifications every 2 years, we have to do a mental health first aid part of the recertification program. And what we do is that all our members are mandatory to take this every 2 years. We also we have the critical incident stress management team that we're partnered with through the state, also through the town with the EAP. The CIS team deals with police, fire, and ambulance specifically, and they usually come out right that night, where the EAP usually takes a little longer to get somebody in, but if there's something that needs to be addressed right away, a bad call or something to that effect, or somebody's at that point. It also goes over threatening to hurt or kill oneself, seeking the means to hurt themselves, or any kind of suicidal thoughts or behaviors. It's all through our the State of Connecticut mental health program that we have to do to keep our certifications up on the ambulance.
Okay, great. Anything additional maybe to add from Chief Garrahy?
Well, suicide prevention is definitely not new to the fire service, and our department has experienced a loss by these means in the past. The sights, the smells, the sounds, and just the overall emergency scene environment just puts everybody there at a risk for emotional damage, and we need to address it. And at the helm, well, 4 years ago this month, was Human Services and Human Resources. We started a campaign with the police department, and all three departments put a group through an in-service on critical incident stress management, and the program provided information on how to recognize potential issues and how to respond. And this led to a very robust employee assistance program introduced by Human Services in 2021. And the EAP program addresses many of the stressors that can cause these type of suicidal thoughts, including financial impacts. They help you out right down to that. Furthermore, we have our own religious component in the department, our chaplains, and they are our first line of defense. The EAP program is available in every station and has been used many times, and the program is confidential, so I think it's been actually used many more times than we're aware of, and our total membership has been advised and educated on the program, and we also have links to the program on every desktop computer, so it's just getting on the computer, clicking and navigating. It's also reviewed yearly as new members come on board. There are considerably more resources out there available, and from a national standpoint, the United States Fire Administration through the government has several programs, including a 24-hour hotline, which is available through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. 3-digit number, 988, and that's through the U.S. Fire Administration, and that's also working with the National Volunteer Fire Council, through the guidance of the Fire Administration, has a Share the Load support program, which is everything from constantly updated behavioral health professionals, which are vetted by the Fire Behavioral Health Alliance. There's numerous additional resources in Share the Load, and the Share the Load through the Fire Administration and the National Volunteer Fire Council also reaches out and puts out guide for the family members of firefighters and EMTs. They're adopting an approach, an educational approach to behavioral health awareness and suicide. And again, they look at it from the whole, from the family down to the person doing the job and back out there, because without good family support, you're just not doing these jobs. It talks about how to bounce back, talks about finding your balance, and again, there's additional support for the family. So again, that's what we have available to us, as well as the local PTSD, our in-house services, the EAP, and the national program. And we do know that we are using it.
PSTD?
PTSD.
PTSD is
Yes.
post?
Geez, Brian, I'm drawing a blank. Help me out because Brian just mentioned it. Post-traumatic
Post-traumatic
stress.
stress
Yeah,
syndrome.
post-traumatic stress. Thank you. So
That
that's-
exists in all kinds of these stressful
Yeah,
areas, not just on the battlefield.
Right, and there's a lot of stressors in the prep. And again, your home life provides stressors. There's a financial impact to doing this. I started out talking about our new employee or new member orientation and the time commitment it takes for this. And it does. And it's very all-encompassing. So again, that's why we reach out to the families and have them help the members.
Any questions for the chief?
Yeah, I do have a question. It could be for any of the chiefs. So when an emergency call comes in about an active suicide threat, so 2 questions. First of all, what resources does that trigger by way of response among police, fire, and ambulance? And secondly, what's the procedure for designating the incident commander?
I'll hit that. I think I've got the
Wanna take
easiest
that one,
part. Typically, the fire department doesn't get called to an active suicide threat. That's an EMS call with a police component, police being first responders. And I don't believe EMS will approach the scene until the police department tells them that it is safe.
Most of the, not most, every time, any kind of a question of a psychiatric call or any kind of buddy that's suicidal or anything that's going on, we're always staged outside or we're you know, somewhere near. Once the police give us the okay to go in, the police will let us know to come in and take care of it. But it starts out with the police being, you know, the first responders and being in charge of that. And then once the scene is safe, then we go in, and once the medical aspect of it comes in, then we take the medical end of it off of the police department's hands and then transport them to the local hospital. Treatment.
So I've heard about situations, this is just anecdotally, where, you know, sometimes there's a concern on the part of the family members or whomever that having the police as initial responders can be a triggering and you know,
It could be.
potentially problematic, you know, based on the particular person's, you know, mindset. And is there a way to kind of
Usually, if that's the
assess that
case,
in
if that's
advance?
the case, then we will work with them to the point where, you know, if they need us or the medic to go inside and be able to, instead of the police department, sometimes that uniform does, I work for the state in a psychiatric hospital as a police dispatcher, so a lot of the units, when they call for help and assistance and the police have to go, it does trigger them more once they see somebody in a uniform rather than a doctor or some kind of a mental health personnel there to try social worker to try to calm them down and stuff. Usually the police take a back seat in that kind of environment. Usually we don't have, around here in town, as long as I've been here, haven't had too much of an incident with people having a trigger for the police department going in. Yes, it could. But if that was the case, then obviously we would work with whatever officer or sergeant that's on the call, and, you know, we'll work with them to make sure that we resolve it, to be able to get the patient calmly out, to be able to go talk to a doctor at a facility.
Thank you.
Councilor Prakash?
No questions at this time.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, and I don't, Chief Collette, did you want to add anything before we go further, or?
After listening to the fire chief and many of the programs and strategies that he mentioned about prevention internally are the same. We have access to the same resources. I think, you know, I touched on earlier, we have peer support internally. These folks are trained to to meet with and monitor our employees and look for these signs and triggers, and it's been very effective, not only for calls on roads or very traumatic calls, but just life issues like the chief mentioned. I mean, it could be anything from, you know, financial issues to home issues. We do get yearly, every quarter, get a report for EAP usage. It is, we don't get the names of employees, just the types of services being used. And it's not extremely high, but it is being taken advantage of by our employees. So I'm confident that what we have in place is working. In relation to the last question, we are very aware of our, you know, that police can, or the presence of police can trigger, maybe even escalate a situation. Fortunately, so is the rest of law enforcement. A lot of our training, our recertification programs and ongoing training, it revolves around de-escalation and trying to recognize that and reading the social cues as officers. If we're seeing that becomes a problem, we can reach out to 211 and get their services as long as they're active. And also our human resource department, you know, Melissa and her team have been great and accessible to us 24 hours a day to come out and kind of take that forward active role with the person or the patient if we think that's best. So we try to be as hands-off as we can and de-escalate and get them the services that they need. And between 211 and human service, it's been fairly effective. We haven't had any issues or concerns or elevated use of force that I'd be concerned about. I think we're kind of hitting it on the head right now.
Sure. The question I have is, I was just wondering how your departments are able to, after a particularly stressful event, are senior members or lateral members to each other, are you able to look at each other and say, hey, I know you're hurting inside? Do you direct people after big events to talk it out? I mean, is there some way to shepherd people into you know, just kind of some reflection or service?
Like the fire department, we perform debriefs after incidents and try to gauge the effect of the calls on our employees. And if we think that there's an issue or needs follow-up, that's where our peer support group come in, and we will reach out to them and have them kind of reach out individually to the officers and kind of gauge where we're at. We have, to this point, we have not had any real major issues with folks. We just be mindful to keep an eye on them and take care of each other. But if we're seeing, change in behavior, change in demeanor, change in appearance, those are cues, and then we will inquire, look into that, and offer other services if we think it's relevant.
Sure. And just one last comment that you all may comment on, but at the forum, I was totally surprised that the professionals speaking said it's okay to ask an individual if they're contemplating suicide. They're saying you cannot you cannot plant the seed and make somebody want to commit suicide. So it's okay to find a way to ask that question. Do you actively do that? Or is that part of any process in your plan?
Well, it's not a part of the plan, and we've never gotten to that point. As Chief Klett says, we do a lot of after-action reports. We'll have a hot wash immediately after. We'll do something a few days after, and that's usually where some of the problems surface. Not immediately, but after a few days of percolating. We're also required by OSHA to do hot washes on certain incidents. So before the crews even leave, bring them back to the firehouse. We just did one from an incident on Hammer Mill. Actually, it was a joint service hot wash. We had PD in there as well as our people. But to answer your question directly, we've never had to do that.
Okay. I'm turning back to staff, to Ray. Ray, Town Manager, anything additional? Are we all set?
No, I think we're all set.
Okay. Counselors, great. Okay. No other business? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.